Hello everyone and welcome back to Covetous Imp Gaming. This week we're going to be answering some questions about certain kinds of players and certain kinds of characters. If you love what we're doing on this channel, please like this video, leave us a comment below about videos you would like to see in the future, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you're alerted to our future content, and check us out on Facebook and Patreon. Those links are down below. All those things really help the channel out a lot and I really appreciate them. So before I get started, it's very important for me to say that the answers to these questions are just my opinions. They work for me and they may not work for you, but perhaps some of the insight that I put out today might change your mind about some things. So my first question was, are there any races, classes, or race-class combinations that I tend to cringe at or roll my eyes at when they're presented at the table? Once upon a time, I had a laundry list of things that I didn't want to see people play. Somebody with Sentinel, a Tabaxi, a Kenku, and everything had its reasoning. And since then, my mentality of it's changed. And I've had people come to me and say, hey, I really want to play a Kenku, and I think I can pull it off. Or I really want to play a Tabaxi, I've never played one before, and the reasons that I had for not wanting them at the table were silly. Oh, they move too fast, or you're not going to be able to role play a Kenku properly. And the people surprised me, and those things got crossed off the list to the point that now I would let anybody play just about anything. In my travels, I would say that if your campaign setting wouldn't allow something, for example, if you're playing a low magic campaign, a wizard wouldn't make sense. Or if anything, they would be super rare. Like, for example, in The Hobbit, wizards aren't everywhere, but they exist. In something like Game of Thrones, wizards are nowhere to be seen. So if you're focusing a campaign setting on something like that, you would need to maybe blacklist a couple of classes. Since then, I've really only come to really blacklist one thing, and that's variant human. And my reason for that is it puts that particular player and ASI ahead of everybody else. And I'll get into kind of what this person aims for in the later question. But my goal as a DM is to have everybody start on as close to a level playing field as possible. And having one person or two people start an ASI ahead of everybody else kind of causes this power shift. And it doesn't allow people to gradually get stronger. You have people who have these massive jumps in power, and having those early really skews the game at an early level. The last one is the power gamey multi-classes like Circle of the Moon Druid with Path of the Totem Barbarian. And I think that it sounds really good on paper, but the time that you're going to start seeing returns on any pre-written campaign, the campaign's almost over by the time you're actually getting to be the Druid Barbarian that you want to be. So you spend a year building this character up from and being levels behind everybody else on ASIs and things like that, just to at the very end be able to take half damage as a cool animal while you're raging. But you know how it goes. So my other question was about people that would be labeled to some as a problem player, and these are your power gamers, your metagamers, your shy role players, and your sore losers. So the first person I want to talk about is the power gamer. Now this person isn't a bad player. They're playing D&D the way that they want to play it, and that's okay. The problem becomes when they start affecting other people's fun at the table. So if you have one person who has to be the first one in a combat and they're the glory seeker and they don't allow anybody else to speak or anything like that, that tends to be a problem, and that's something that needs to be addressed quickly so that you don't start losing players because of this person. Now, I said I would get back to the variant human thing, and your power gamer is typically the person that's going to take variant human because they want to get that feat to jumpstart something like Polar Master Sentinel to have an early advantage and close that off at level 4 rather than having to wait until level 8. And again, this is a problem if you don't know how to deal with it. For someone who wants to abuse something like Polar Master Sentinel, a battle where there's swarms of enemies tend to, one of those enemies is going to get destroyed by their reaction, and the rest of them are going to close the gap. And if you can close this person in, they can't move, and then they can't abuse their feats. At higher levels of play, if it's still something that is tending to be abused, pick a monster that can teleport and let that Polar Master Sentinel use all their movement to get to where you are, and then use a legendary action to teleport to behind the wizard, 120 feet away, and then it's going to take that person another 2 turns to get back to where you are, at which point you can just teleport to somewhere else. So these things were things that used to bother me to no end back in the day, and now they bother me less and less because there's ways to adapt and overcome to these different playstyles. So the next person's the metagamer, and I think the metagamer comes in a lot of different levels as well. The first one being we're up against a troll. Would I know that this troll is vulnerable to fire damage? I don't think this is a bad thing. They're kind of just asking, is there any way that I can tie this knowledge to my character's past? And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that if you can say like, oh, I've heard stories about trolls when I was a kid, or my father was a monster hunter, or, the first thing this person does when they get into a new town or city is, I want to go to the bookstore. I want to go to the library. If they're that person where they're constantly seeking new knowledge, then sure, they might have this knowledge. If they're the kind of person that their intelligence is a negative and their first stop in the new town is, new town, new tavern, maybe they wouldn't have that knowledge, but somebody in the party might know it, and they'd be able to spread that knowledge on their turn. So now, to go a step beyond, the metagamer that tends to be a problem is the one who will say things like, I know this zombie only has 8 armor class, or this cloud giant has 200 hit points. And to put that information out to the table tends to be a problem. Or the guy who will make notes of damage that's incoming damage for a monster, and okay, we've done this much damage so far. That tends to take away from the fun at the table, because the party then knows, oh, this guy's only got 34 hit points left, like just do this and we're done, like one sneak attack and he's dead. And the way to counteract that is to make your own monsters, and there's a lot of websites that will that have preloadable forms, and you can make your own stat blocks just like you find in any printed material. And I tend to use these a lot, not to throw off metagamers, just because I think it's fun to make my own monsters. And, maybe you wanted to have a mummy that wasn't vulnerable to fire, or have a vampire that's been mummified and now he's the best of both worlds. And that's the kind of thing, those things I think are memorable to your players as well, when they have something that's not something that they've seen before. It's something original that changes the way that they have to look at things in the future. So our next person is the shy role player. Now, this person, again, isn't a problem. They're just, they're really just option A or option B. Option A is they don't want to role play. They just want to come and roll dice and kill monsters, and that's okay. It's their fun, again. Option B is they don't know where to get started. And as the dungeon master, that's kind of on you to find something in their backstory, or if they didn't make a backstory, to make something for them. Have some shady character or friendly character from their past make an appearance, and kind of call them out and try to pull the role play out of them. And if it's something that they kind of struggle with, or they give you pushback, then end it right there. But if it's something that they can go with and they can improve upon, then you've both put yourself to the test of making someone a better role player, and you've allowed someone to become a better role player at the table in front of everybody else. So pat yourself on the back for that if that goes your way. So the last person on the list is the sore loser. Now this person is the only one on the list that's really a potential problem. Because this person, what it really comes down to is this person doesn't trust you as the DM. This person will make comments like, "You're out to get me, this encounter is not fair, you just like to watch people suffer," you name it. Now, Dungeons & Dragons is a game that is won and lost by the dice. You're literally just telling the story. Now, I've said multiple times on the channel that there are fights that you can throw at people that are, for lack of a better word, IQ tests. Are you smart enough to run away from this fight, to know that this is a fight that you can't win right now, but someday you'll be back and you'll win this fight? So you have that, and you also have fights that can potentially go bad, but you can fail forward from. An intelligent monster or creature or person is going to see that the party as a group has value, as ransom, as slaves, as possible employees. And to be able to say, okay, like, you guys are all dead, but this person nurses you back to health for this purpose. Now, of course, the party is going to still hate this person, and that's what you want. But the fact that they didn't just, okay, go make new characters and we're starting over, or this campaign's over, you've given them this option of moving forward from that failure. So I want to have another note about failing forward. I don't think that this is the kind of thing that you should be doing all the time. It's definitely like a once at maximum per campaign kind of thing to do. And if you're TPKing people on a regular basis, you might want to kind of reassess your encounters and the way that you're kind of stacking encounters against players or characters. You're clearly either your party makeup isn't right, and that's something that they need to address, or the challenge level that you're putting forth is too high. But I'm going to use an example from Phandelver here. Your first encounter at level 1 is a group of goblins attacking from both sides of the road with arrows. So you have no idea where the attacks are coming from. They have a surprise round, and you've got to move to get to your target. And if you don't have enough movement, let's say you're a dwarf and you're the tanky person in the group, but you're a dwarf, you might not get to the goblins before they get another round of attacks on you. That encounter is easy enough with a surprise round and the goblins potentially rolling high in initiative that you could lose a lot of people and ultimately lose everybody, to the point that you could TPK on your first encounter. So what would you do here? I would say you're unconscious, bound, dragged back to the cave. The bugbear comes out and tells you that you're his slaves now and you're going to work the mine. This gives the party the potential of overtaking their captors and getting their things back and continuing on with the adventure, rather than just, okay, we played for 10 minutes and you're dead. So I hope that answered all your questions, guys. I will be doing another video soon about rules questions that people tend to get wrong often. So if you have any questions about rules that you just can't seem to wrap your head around, please leave them down in the comments below and I will get to them as soon as I can. D&D has a big announcement coming out on Thursday. I will probably do a midweek video about that as soon as it's finished. Spelljammer comes out this week, so if you're looking forward to that, you should check it out. I know I'll be getting mine tomorrow. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I love making videos like these. I love answering questions for people. And just remember, if you're the DM, you're a player at the table too. Yes, you're telling the story, and you're telling the story of the villain. But you're a player too, and you need to enjoy yourself as well.